All right, so these are the notes for Absolute Monarchs. This is part 1. So we're going through about, I think, a little more than half. Yeah. All right, so let's see. So first we've got the definition. So complete and unrestricted power, no constitution or law, and the monarch holding executive, legislative, and judicial powers. So this is what I was talking about. And you kind of saw in the video, like, there's nothing that would stop Louis, for example, from dealing out justice any way he wants, from punishing whoever he wants. They don't have, and if they do have a law or constitution that exists, it isn't mandatory for the king to follow it in an absolute monarchy. They aren't kind of subject to the same laws as regular people. And then the monarch holds so executive is like the powers that the president has. Legislative, remember, that's like, so maybe think legal, writing, so that's writing the laws, and judicial is handing down, like being like, all right, he's like the judge and jury. So like in that video, he gets to decide, all right, you're gonna die, and that's why she wasn't going to beg, or because she knew in her mind, well, she was guilty anyway in the show, but that once he decides she's already going to die, then that's what's going to happen. There was no, like, basically it was like, she's not going to plead for her life because there's no point, because he already decided whether or not she was going to die because of what she did. Now, there would be plenty of people who would totally, not most people, would probably be like, no, I don't want to live, I didn't do this, or whatever. She was also older, and she was probably tired of all the shenanigans. What were the, hang on, let me see right quick. So it was unrestricted power, no, okay, unrestricted power. Let's make sure we spell that correctly. Wait, it's power, right? Not unrestricted. So power and no. Alright. So divine right, this is when he was like, I was chosen by God. It just like in a sense of, the idea here is, I guess, that when he's born, his like being, his entity was put into a body as I've chosen this concept of a person to stick in this child, and I chose you to be in charge. And like the lady, she was like, we were both like born just in different households, essentially. So we see the difference in beliefs, and this is what's going to change over time. So a lot of people now would be like, that's ridiculous, nobody decided that you were going to be, because you would have had to exist before, whatever. It would have just, anyways. But they control people like this, which is what it says here. So you can't really speak up against somebody that's supposed to be, essentially the representative of God, right? Here is a famous painting of Louis XIV. And the big thing you should notice here is that the angel is crowning him. So this is, again, this concept of God has given them the right to rule, and therefore whatever they do is sanctioned in a sense. I don't know if anybody would give anybody the right to rule with that wig, but that's just me. Very tall. But then again, he was supposed to be all fabulous and over the top and kind of ridiculous. Let me double check. So this one was just, okay, was just God. Okay. So this was the order. So you had God at the top, then the monarch, which is either the king or queen, then nobles, and then the rest of the people are down here. This is just this is the map of what it kind of looked like during that time. So a lot of things are almost kind of similar. Like Spain still looks like this, Portugal looks like this. The big one is in here, all this junk. France is a little bit further. Germany ends up being like in here eventually. So there's a lot of little things going on here. Habsburg doesn't exist anymore. This was it. Huge empire. They were having kids and marrying them off to everybody in any country. Like, that was just getting crazy. They were a big kind of caused big problems with the whole marrying the cousin thing, and they ended up with a couple of weird genetic disorders. One ended up going to Russia, I think, and that was where the blood doesn't clot and you could essentially bleed to death. And then there was what they called the Habsburg jaw, so this oversized underjaw, like a lower bite that was absolutely extreme, not just a little bit, ridiculous. This of course is Italy, so it's gonna come up here. Prussia was what would end up being Germany. So, but it would be over here. So, things are definitely differently situated now. All right, this would be called the Holy Roman Empire, all up in here. All right, let's move on. All right. Okay, so we got Philip II, also very eccentric guy. Often depicted with a sort of you would think now if you were to see the way in some documentaries and movies and stuff, he comes across very odd. Normally they portray him as somewhat odd. Eventually he will invade England. He was married to Mary the First, Bloody Mary, who was Elizabeth the First's sister, right? When we take it back to Henry VIII, Mary the First was the firstborn, then Elizabeth the First, and then you had Edward the Sixth, and Edward ruled and died, and then Mary, they put her on the throne, and then Mary died, and then Elizabeth the First was on the throne. So he married Mary, but they stayed in separate countries. And then he wanted to marry Elizabeth because he was like, I want control of England because then I have Spain and England. And Elizabeth was like, heck no. So he invades with his Spanish Armada, which is, I guess, basically just the Navy. It's just means fleet of ships. It's not yeah, I'm still kind of out of it. All right, what was going in here? Let's see. Armada. All right. I'll type that in here just in case. Make sure you spell these correctly because, again, it'll count stuff wrong. All right. James the First of Scotland, England, Ireland. This is the one we talked about before with the Roman numerals. He was the first of England and Ireland. He was actually the 6th of Scotland. And he said, Adeo Rex Arrege Lex, which is Latin. And it means the king is from God and the law is from the king. So basically, that the way he's governing is his right because of because he was chosen by God, and he's going to be more extreme than Elizabeth. He follows Elizabeth. He comes after her. And he gets into some big fights with Parliament because they, think that they should be able to influence government, and he, of course, thinks he should have all the power, so this turns into a big thing. Elizabeth ends up working with Parliament a bit, but she is, still the ultimate decision maker. Things are just going to get more tense, and he was Catholic. Yeah, he was Catholic, and that was another thing they didn't like, because Elizabeth was Protestant, but she was also a moderate. She wasn't going to attack the Catholics either, so she was kind of more neutral. And I've got a video clip of that too. But he's going to be very, very Catholic. So I think the word was not that you put in. All right. Then we have Charles the First of England, Ireland, and Scotland. Go back. He's going to straight up end up starting a war. He ends up starting the English Civil War with Parliament, where this is where they go from an absolute monarchy to basically a constitutional monarchy. Now this is going to change again with his son, Charles II. But they end up beheading him because they made him sign stuff. They're like, oh yeah, just sign this paper and we'll share power. And he was like, all right, fine, I'll sign the stupid paper. Give me my money. And then, of course, he didn't follow anything that they had outlined. And so they were mad, and they gathered up an army. And we'll talk about that more. We have a separate notes, and I don't know if I have a chapter on it. I think I do. Not positive. But anyway, the point of that is the goal, the end result is England becomes more democratic. But it's a hard battle to get there. Anybody want these fabulous shoes? I'm pretty sure that needs to be a thing. Totally.
Yeah.
No. It's like a little those dandelions, the weed. It looks like a giant dandelion. Yeah. Oh. What did we put in here? He was okay, war. Yeah, I put all the simple words in here. Good. All right, we got Charles V of the Holy Roman Empire. He is going to sanction and say okay, you can do this for the Castilian, which is basically Italian conquistadors. No, Spanish conquistadors. What am I talking about? Italian. Spanish conquistadors. Castile is, yeah, okay. I'm not awake enough for this. But of the Aztec and Inca empires. So Cortez, Pizarro, he's going to be like, yeah, go take that over, go bring us the land, and it's cool. Was he a Habsburg? I feel like he may have been. You can see how, yeah, I think so. He has Habsburg influence, I think, because you can see how big his jaw is down here, and it sticks out a little bit more than his top lip. What was the word that went in there? of the Aztec. Okay. So this one is Aztec. Think. Is that the end of it? No. All right. So if you remember back to the map where it was like almost like a hot mess of color in the middle, so she kind of ruled that and the Habsburg Empire at the bottom. She was the only one who actually ruled the what would have been essentially the kingdom, right, of the Habsburgs, which is now gone. I guess she got married, but she was like, nope, I'm in charge. And she does some good things. So she does some financial reforms, so with money. So she'll go through some reforms with that. Some educational ones. Commerce really does kind of tie in with financial reforms, so that is having to do with businesses, trading, things like that. She's going to kind of focus on agriculture and improving it so that the areas have more, like they can have more food for themselves so they don't have to like import or go through famines where there is no food or things like that. So it ends up strengthening the empire. And Austria's military was kind of all over the place and a hot mess. And she's kind of going to reorganize it so that it looks more like that of, let's say, England, Spain, France, the ones that are pretty organized. And this is going to lead to the empire, like it's going to be called Austro-Hungary Empire. And they're going to be pretty powerful. Let me double check. All right, so of the Habsburg, Habsburg. Hang on, I'll type out Habsburg. So let me put that in there, and then the other one was just power. I think that was it, right? That's the end for this one. Maybe, maybe not. No, it isn't. We got Louis. Can't forget this guy. That would just be insanity. Oh, no. All right, there we go. All right. He was known as the Sun King. In that other series that I talked about, like Versailles, they would put on plays and stuff, and I do believe one time it was probably some masquerade ball or something where he ended up dressing up as the sun, so it kind of fit. He ends up building this giant palace. You can still go see it today. If you went to France, and you wanted to go see the Palace of Versailles, then you could. So you could still go there and tour it. Well, maybe not now. But maybe after COVID. He reigned for a super long time. He came into power when he was fairly young, so he was in his 20s. But at the same, I think they're probably including the part maybe where he was not actually ruling. I assume, because he definitely wasn't going to be 100 something. He also has a quote that is similar to James the First, and that's "L'état c'est moi," which the direct translation is "the state, it is me." But if you were to, make it make sense, it would be like, "I am the state," or "I am the government." Um, so he is the ultimate power essentially for the country. Whenever you see them say stuff like state, I know with us it gets kind of we get caught up in that there are the states in the United States of America, but those states are considered like different governments. So it would be like North Carolina government, Virginia government. So government and state are synonyms in history like this, the way they're using it. And again, he's the ultimate power. He has all the control. He's in charge. France is him essentially. He's like, I am France. Like, France is essentially does not exist without me. So we've got in that other video clip, you could see like she was like vanity and calling him out on different things that he was doing. And it was very much about the monarch.